Pam Bondi and Donald Trump not only share a love of being childish and unprofessional.
As I was attempting to answer your question very calmly, unlike you,
But much like children, they also love their toys. They just can't keep their grubby little hands off of a nicely wrapped present, even if it's blatantly illegal. And boy howdy, are there plenty of illegal gifts flooding into the Trump administration, from luxury cigars to soccer balls to straight up stealing money from the American people, in Donald Trump's case. This story has been severely underreported in the mainstream media, so be sure to subscribe to Really American if you want to know what the Trump administration is up to behind closed doors. The Trump-Bondi connection goes back decades. Pam has made a name for herself in Florida by protecting the rich and powerful. As AG in Florida, for example, she refused to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein and went out of her way to protect him from his victims. And for Donald Trump, she became his legal fixer, coming out of the woodwork to deflect from his near infinite scandals and scams. Eventually, taking a corrupt bribe from the Trump Foundation that was revealed in a crew investigation that ended up forcing Trump to close his foundation. And over the course of her long and snaky career, Bondi has developed a penchant for bribes, and that's according to one of the disgruntled DOJ employees that she fired, and there are many. They've released new details that give insight into the level of corruption that is happening, not only in Pam Bondi's office, but also with Kash Patel over at the FBI. Here's the headline from the Daily Beast. DOJ watchdog says, "I was fired over Bondi's thirst for free stuff." This is reporting that stems from a severely overlooked report from the New York Times this last Sunday that was just chock full of direct quotes from some of the fired DOJ agents who, before now, haven't spoken publicly. One of the employees is Joseph Terrell, who was fired along with any employee who so much as gave a cup of coffee to Jack Smith. Terrell is joining two others in a lawsuit against Bondi, so he's been pretty tight-lipped, but he did give a statement to the Times that is honestly insane. He says, "I had done some work for Jack Smith, so I assumed that would bring some heat down on me. But in my gut, I also think they didn't want the ethics office calling them up and telling them what to do. As a federal employee, you're restricted from accepting gifts from anyone because of your position. I briefed Miss Bondi about the ethics rules, and we talked about accepting gifts from employees in the department. For the most part, leaders can't accept gifts from their subordinates. We had about a 10-minute conversation about whether or not she could accept challenge coins from offices within the department, and that seemed to me an odd thing given everything else that we might have discussed, i.e. Mr. Terrell is wondering why the hell she's asking about those coins when he just told her that she can't keep any gifts." Back to the reporting, he says, "But that started to be a recurring theme with the AG's office. They didn't want to return gifts. They didn't want to not accept gifts, whatever the source. We got a request about some cigars from Conor McGregor and a soccer ball from FIFA, and I felt like I really had to go to the mattress to convince the AG's office. You can pay for the item, or you can return the item, or you can throw the item away. There are no other ways to do this." This is now an aside from the New York Times, who said a Justice Department spokesperson said that, after consulting with ethics officials, the soccer ball was accepted on behalf of the department and the cigars were destroyed. I wouldn't be surprised if those cigars were destroyed by burning them from one end to the other. Back to Terrell here, and then I got a call from the general counsel at the FBI about changing expectations to the gift rules because his boss, Kash Patel, money Kash Patel, felt like he should be able to accept more expensive gifts. I reminded him that his client was not Mr. Patel, but the United States. And the crazy part is, that isn't even the most blatantly corrupt move that Pam Bondi has taken. Here's another section of the report from the New York Times. Trump demanded $230 million in compensation for being prosecuted following his first term. Bondi and Blanche, Trump's former lawyers, could decide whether Trump receives the money. Asked about the $230 million demand, a spokesperson for Trump's personal legal team emailed, President Trump continues to fight back against all Democrat-led witch hunts, including the Russia hoax and the unconstitutional and un-American weaponization of our justice system by crooked Joe Biden and his handlers. If you think that is a laughably stupid response, you're not the only one. Mike Romano, who is one of the January 6 prosecutors, said, "It seems comically corrupt. First, there was nothing inappropriate about this prosecution. Second, he won the presidency, so how is he harmed to the tune of $230 million? And third, he has appointed the people tasked with deciding whether he gets the money, and we've seen that his appointees do what he wants. It's as if he's robbing the Treasury to pay himself." So behind the scenes, Pam Bondi is fighting to keep her gifts against the evil ethics watchdogs, who by this point have all been replaced with Trumpian rubes, or they just haven't been replaced at all, leaving that spot vacant. And not only is she fighting for herself, she's fighting to help Kash Patel, Mr. Jet Setter, who is going around wasting $60 million of taxpayer money to fly his girlfriend around on dates. And it's honestly not even worth diving into Trump's obvious bribes, from the FIFA trophy that he stole, to the golden plaque that was given to him by Tim Cook, or to the $400 million Qatari airplane. I mean, shit, he brags about private donors completely paying for his gaudy ballroom.
Trump says the project is being funded entirely by private donors. The White House reportedly securing millions from Lockheed Martin and Google. Microsoft, Apple, and Meta also reportedly listed as potential donors. Congressman Jamie Raskin calling it a gaudy Marie Antoinette ballroom for the billionaires and CEOs.
So it's clear that Bondi is just the legal fixer, not only for Trump, but for the entire administration, willing to be the fall guy when Trump changes his mind on the Epstein files, willing to defy court orders and get sued, willing to defend anyone in the cabinet, whether they get red-handed or not.
Did you know whether or not in that investigation they looked at whether the 2024 $50,000 payment to Mr. Homan was declared by him on his tax returns?
Senator, I would be more concerned if I were you when you talk about corruption and money, that when you pushed for legislation that would subsidize your wife's company.
The questions here are actually pretty specific. So having you respond with completely irrelevant far-right internet talking points really is not very helpful here.
And I can't stress enough just how many employees of the DOJ are coming out against the administration for a slew of different reasons. Here are just a couple more concerning cases. Gregory Rosen, who oversaw the unit at the DOJ that prosecuted Jan 6 rioters, told The Times that he felt numb seeing the pardons for the rioters, but nonetheless facilitated the pardons because he understood that they were within the president's constitutional powers. Mike Romano, a prosecutor who helped work on the Jan 6 cases, said that he had to resign as soon as he saw the broad scope of the pardons, which included rioters who were guilty of assaulting police officers. "I wouldn't even call it the Justice Department anymore," she said. "It's become Trump's personal law firm. I think Americans should be enraged." Clearly, the DOJ has turned from a justice and law enforcement organization into a get-out-of-jail-free card factory for Trump and his friends. And this damage will persist for long after Trump is gone. What we are seeing now is a fundamental shift in what the DOJ even is, which is why we have organizations like Justice Connection, which was started by an ex-DOJ employee to maintain the integrity of the agency. Here's the founder of Justice Connection, Stacey Young, speaking with another ex-DOJ employee and YouTuber, Glenn Krishner, about why their work is so important.
So I founded Justice Connection on January 31st, which was exactly 1 week after I resigned from the department. And I knew after the election that this administration was going to attack the civil service. And I knew that they would especially focus on the Justice Department because, frankly, there's only one federal agency that investigated and prosecuted this president. So I knew that DOJ would be especially vulnerable. And I knew that the rule of law could be viewed as an impediment to the administration's goals. And DOJ is the primary agency in our country that enforces the law, that enforces the federal law. Of course, the courts interpret the law, but DOJ is the federal agency that primarily enforces it. So I knew that employees were going to be under attack. And in fact, Russell Vought, who's the current OMB director, said after the election that the administration's goal was going to be to put federal employees in trauma, which is a horrendous, appalling thing to say. But I took him at his word, and he absolutely set about achieving that mission.
Justice Connection is a great example of how DOJ employees are standing up to Trump's blatant corruption. And there are other organizations like this who are helping to fight back on the front lines of our democracy, whose institutions are eroding at an alarming rate right in front of our eyes. Your lifeline to all the news that MAGA hates to hear is right here at Really American. So be sure to subscribe. I'm Tony Hinderman, and I'll catch you next time.